When we picture ancient warfare, we usually imagine a visceral test of brute strength. We see mass casualties, the clash of armor in the mud, and generals chasing the glory of a hard-fought victory. That image of war makes it easy to misunderstand a text written over 2,500 years ago, Sun Tzu's The Art of War. It remains the most famous military treatise in human history. You might expect a manual like this to teach you how to crush your enemies on the battlefield. But Sun Tzu argues the exact opposite. He states that fighting and conquering in all your battles is actually a sign of failure. Instead, he defines supreme excellence with a single counterintuitive standard: breaking the enemy's resistance without ever engaging in combat. Viewing conflict purely as a physical contest is a fatal trap. True strategic mastery means you have already won the war before a single sword is drawn. Analytical. If armies are built to fight, why does the world's greatest military philosopher consider actual combat to be the worst possible option? The answer comes down to economics. Maintaining a sprawling army of 100,000 men, supplying them with chariots, armor, and provisions, incurs an exorbitant daily cost. Sun Tzu specifically measures this massive drain at 1,000 ounces of silver per day. A prolonged campaign mathematically destroys the state that wages it. Weapons dull, troops exhaust themselves, and the heavy tax burden strips the citizens of their income and resources. Once your treasury is spent and your army is tired, rival chieftains will see your vulnerability. Opportunistic enemies will immediately strike while you are weakened. Brute force is a massive liability. Absolute victory requires a strategy that preserves your own state's resources entirely. To win without fighting, a general must possess a godlike awareness of the entire geopolitical board. Sun Tzu calls this concept foreknowledge. This kind of clarity cannot be conjured from spirits, nor can it be guessed through deductive reasoning. It requires precise, boots-on-the-ground human intelligence. Sun Tzu describes a system called the divine manipulation of the threats. It uses 5 distinct classes of spies: local, inward, converted, doomed, and surviving, funneling data to the commander. This network maps the enemy's operations, providing absolute clarity on their hidden strengths and vulnerabilities. Wars are won through information asymmetry. If you understand the enemy's mind better than they do, physical combat becomes entirely redundant. Once you have foreknowledge, you can weaponize it. This leads to Sun Tzu's most famous axiom: all warfare is based on deception. You use the enemy's expectations against them through inverse appearances. When you are capable of attacking, you must seem unable. When you are close, you make the enemy believe you are far away. This psychological pressure forces the enemy to panic. By making them prepare for phantom attacks everywhere, they divide their forces to cover every angle. This fragmentation guarantees they will be numerically weak and isolated at the exact point you intend to strike. Deception is a mechanical tool. It physically dismantles an opponent's defense before a single real blow is struck. Sun Tzu uses a metaphor to describe how a general should execute this tactical advantage. Military strategy must mimic the relentless, adaptable flow of water. Water naturally runs away from high places and hastens downwards. In the same way, a strategist avoids the enemy's concentrated strengths and only crashes into their hollows and vulnerabilities. To do this, an army must achieve formlessness. You remain completely fluid, masking your dispositions, so you present no fixed shape for the enemy to target. This constant, shifting presence allows you to hold out baits and effortlessly draw the enemy out of position, forcing them into fatal errors. A battle is only ever initiated when the tactical math is perfect. You step onto the field only when the victorious outcome is an absolute certainty. True formlessness means the strategist controls the entire environment. The actual combat is merely a formality to collect a pre-calculated win. We can now look back at our cinematic view of warfare and see it for what it is. According to Sun Tzu, throwing men at the siege of walled cities is the worst policy of all, a disastrous failure of leadership. Moving up the hierarchy, attacking the enemy's army in the open field is slightly better, but it still risks a devastating loss of life and resources. Higher still is the ability to disrupt the enemy's alliances. Preventing the junction of their forces isolates your opponent without causing mass casualties. But the absolute apex of generalship, The highest form of mastery is to balk the enemy's plans before they even materialize in the real world. This philosophy of resource preservation applies far beyond ancient warfare. In a corporate business strategy, a political campaign, or even a personal dispute, drawn-out conflict exhausts everyone involved. True power isn't about bleeding in the arena to prove your strength. It's about positioning yourself so flawlessly that your opponent realizes they are defeated before the fight even begins.